I'm concerned for the practical application of how this is written. And 707, I think, was a much tighter shot group. I agree with your sentiment. There's much in here to be applauded. Much of 707 is in here.
Yeah, it is. 707 was rolled into this
Right.
committee substitute. And I'll be glad to work with you on this because the idea here was the Article 5 convention, that takes the other folks. This puts us in a position, we don't have to wait for them. We have something, an issue that needs to be settled for Texas.
Then,
And we did something,
right.
a version of this.
Then I'd rather, we may have to go down a subject here, revisit a subject that isn't fun to revisit here in the chamber. Then I'd rather have the ability to do a resolution that compels the Attorney General. If the Attorney General, right now, and previous Attorney Generals have all been more than willing to go to federal court, seek relief based upon a constitutional analysis. The day we don't have an Attorney General that does that, I'd rather see the legislature be able to tell the Attorney General, we want you to do this. Maybe that's the place for because that's his proper role to protect the state. And if the Attorney General does not have the capacity or the will to protect the state as the legislature desires, again, I'm going to bring up the I word, but at some point, does the legislature say, thank you for your service, Mr. Attorney General, you're removed from office because we want somebody that'll do this?
Well,
But once you go down the road of, I mean, when you had in here, let me find it real quick. I'm looking for the right page. I beg your forgiveness here, Senator. You list every possible state actor, governor, lieutenant governor, statewide elected officials, school districts, charter districts, every geopolitical subdivision of the state, every officer is compelled to act, and if in their judgment they act and the legislature disagrees with that judgment, they may be at risk. If they don't act and the legislature is in disagreement with their inaction, you place every geopolitical subdivision officer of the state in a very difficult position in the same way that I think the judicial branch is placed in a very difficult position.
But that's no different than any law we pass.
But the laws that we pass are based upon the authority of the state over state officers as opposed to the interpretation of each individual.
Okay, but that's
each individual office holder of what is what is federally constitutional and what is not federally constitutional. Okay. I would rather see the Attorney General be that person because one, that's been most functional for us, but two, it doesn't place every state actor across all 254 counties, all 1,200 school districts, every river authority, every geopolitical subdivision that we have created, place them in the subjective state of what do I do if the legislature doesn't agree with my action or my inaction.
Just like any other law, because we're not talking about changing the Constitution. No, we're talking about saying the federal government's taking an action that we feel is unconstitutional, and therefore we're not going to have that implemented in Texas. That's no different than any other law we had passed to say we're going to do it this way. We're not changing it. We're just telling, hey, federal government, you have overstepped your bounds, and we're not going to. We did this when we passed the Second Amendment Sovereignty Act a couple of sessions ago. They said, federal government, you're not going, you can pass all the new gun laws you want.
And we said we wouldn't, and we said we would not participate, and that was as far as we went, and that's where 707 ends. We won't participate, but we will not go beyond that. So I agree with the sentiment profoundly. I'm not sure that the the methodology is the right methodology.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that because I have immense respect for you, Senator. I just, I'm trying to think through. It's one thing for Texas to pass laws that apply to Texas, but the subjective nature of deciding that the state or state actors are compelled to decide what is constitutional or not constitutional may place those individuals. It's part of the reason why I voted the way I did on the last version of our border security bill last session, because it may place law enforcement, school board members in a very difficult circumstance that, as much as I applaud trying to get the federal government back in its 9th and 10th Amendment box, the people most responsible for that are the citizens. In your layout, you talked about how citizens were the sovereign embodiment of the state. They're also the sovereign embodiment of the federal government. The same citizens that vote for our congressional delegation are the same citizens that vote for our state officers. I'd much rather see us contemplate something for the Attorney General if the Attorney General refuses to act. I very much appreciate the conversation. I'm sorry I've dominated it, Madam Chair.
That's all right. No, we want everybody to get their questions asked and answered.
Okay, if you're done, just
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
This would, a good example would be, there's a lot of stuff that the federal government now tells us to do, and they hand us money. And we say, you have no business telling us to do that. We aren't going to give you the money unless you do this. So you have a situation that said, we're going to tell you to do this, but we're not going to give you the money. So we would want, and I would see our reaction to that to be no different than if we created a new law that the body agreed to, the governor signed off on it. Every city, county, judge, school district, everybody else is going to have to obey that law because we decided it. I'm not talking about going out and doing a challenge on the basic tenets of the constitutionality. I'm talking about the situation we have here where we have a federal government that loves to tell the states what to do outside of their authority to do it, and then they bribe us to do it.
You've just made a great case about the problem with the 17th Amendment.
So, all right, I'll be glad to work with you to see if we can't do this, because I think we need a version of this, and if we got to make some tweaks to it, I'm happy to work with you on it.
Thank you, Senator.
Because I really respect your understanding.
And I
of
very
the
much
Constitution.
appreciate the dialogue that we've had here. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your discretion and grace.
Thank you, senators, for your thoughtful discussion.